In 11.3, we're going to be subtracting integers. And so to subtract an integer, we simply just add its opposite. So here you can see we've got a number line. And in this problem, we are going to be taking 3 and subtracting 4. So if we have our 3, we can think of it as taking 4 away from that 3. So we've got 2, 1, 0, and then it leaves us with a -1. Or we can also think of it as doing the method that we are going to talk about today, which is adding its opposite. And you're going to see that you simply come up with the same result. So you've got 1, 2, 3 positives. When you add the -4 in, okay, so we are going to be adding these 4 here, you are going to also end up with a -1. And that equation would look like that. So we are going to end up with the same result, whether you think of it as taking away 4 or adding its opposite of -4. If you put it on the number line, I know it takes more time, but if you're a visual learner, it might help you make sense of the process of adding something's opposite. So we're just going to jump right in with a few examples. So if we've got 8 and we're taking away 10, we simply add its opposite, 8 plus -10. So if you had, and again, I like to think about all of these in terms of money. If you had $8 and then you took away or added a -10, so let's say you got a $10 charge for something, after you paid that charge, you would now owe whomever $2. Okay, you would be in debt $2. The second example, -3 minus a -6. So you're not going to do anything with the -3, you're simply going to leave it a -3. And then you're going to add the opposite of, in the parentheses, which is -6. We're going to add the opposite of -6, which is 6. So again, let's say you were in debt $3 and somebody came along and gave you $6, you would now have +3. Third example, 2 minus a -4. 2, add its opposite of the -4. We're going to add the opposite of -4, which is 4. And that would be like saying you have $2, you get 4 more, and you've got +6. Now you are going to come across the situation where you have a lot going on in one equation, such as this one here, -7 minus a -12 minus 14. You're just going to do the same thing in multiple steps. And so start with one at a time. Start from left to right. You've got your -7. You're going to add the opposite of -12, which is 12, and then just rewrite the rest of the equation. Okay. And so now just do this from left to right. So -7 plus 12. Well, you're in debt $7. You come across $12. You pay off that debt, and you now have $5 and now take away that 14. And once again, subtracting integers is like adding its opposite. Now, this is subtracting a +14. So when you're adding its opposite, you're going to add the opposite of this +14, which is a -14. And you're going to end up with -9. All right, let's look at another one of those multi-step problems. -11 minus 5 minus a -8. So once again, just take it from left to right and do one step at a time. -11, you're going to add the opposite of this +5, which is a -5. And then like I said before, just rewrite the rest of the equation. Don't try to do more than one step at a time. So you are in debt $11. You add an additional charge of $5. You are now in debt $16. That gives you a negative 16. Now you're going to add the opposite of your negative 8. Add the opposite of negative 8, which is 8. So negative 16, and then you get to go up the number line 8 spots. You are still negative, but not quite as much. You are at negative 8. And the last example we're going to look at is a comparison. So we've got two continents here, and the information we have is for their highest elevation point and their lowest elevation point. So let's take a look at South America. You can see the highest elevation is 6,960 meters. The lowest elevation is negative 40 meters, so well below sea level. Europe, 5,642 meters, and lowest elevation is 92 meters. We want to know which continent has the greater range of elevations. So if you were to see the elevations on an elevation map, which one would have the largest gap in between the lowest and the highest elevation. So first thing we need to do is solve for the range of elevations for each of these continents before we can answer that question. So let's do South America first. So we have 6,960, and we are going to be subtracting our negative 40. 6,960, we're going to add the opposite of negative 40, which is 40. So we add these together, and you are going to end up with a range of 7,000 meters. So the difference between the lowest point on the continent and the highest point on the continent is 7,000 meters. All right, and then we'll move over to Europe. 5,642 minus negative 92. Add the opposite of negative 92, which is a positive 92. Add those together, and you are going to get a difference of 5,734 meters. So again, if we take this from the low to high, you are going to have a difference of 5,734 meters. If you were thinking of this as like a climbing expedition, and you were going on each continent from the lowest point on the continent to the highest point on the continent, on which continent would you gain the most elevation? You would gain the most elevation on the South American continent by almost 1,300 meters. So once again, before we leave the lesson, just make sure you are remembering that when you are subtracting integers, it's a little counterintuitive, but you are really just adding the opposite of that integer. And in multiple step problems, like those we saw here, just make sure that you are taking it one step at a time and working from left to right.